Welcome to the Empowered Spirit Show. This is your host, Terri and Heiman. I'll explore the connection to the human spirit in a way that helps to navigate your life, including crisis. I am passionate about helping you to open up to your intuition and the metaphysical world of spirit to find your confidence in your own inner guidance. Take a pause, be inspired, learn ways to show up focused, centered, and more dynamic in your everyday life.
Welcome back to the Empowered Spirit Show. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining me today. This episode is being sponsored by Ritual and Shelter. Are you looking for a magical place to shop and hold space? Check out Ritual and Shelter online or in Homewood, Alabama. Browse through their bookshelves covering topics such as energy healing, crystal healing, Reiki, chakras, auras, the Akashic Records, shadow work, astrology, and earth-based healing. You can also find herbal teas and tinctures alongside their crystals and oils to help establish a mindful mindset and fluid ambience before meditation, ritual work, and reflection. Ritual and Shelter is dedicated to providing one-on-one, in-depth conversations with customers to help them find the most efficient healing methods and resources that match their unique interest and energy. They offer tarot sessions, Reiki, sound bowl, and crystal healing, and now they are offering witch consultations. Visit ritualshelter.com to book an appointment and bring peace back to the body, mind, and spirit. You can also find them on Instagram at Ritual Shelter Shop, as well as Pinterest at Ritual Plus Shelter. So as this podcast goes to air, we are journeying deeper and deeper into December, and we approach one of the most sacred and powerful moments in the cosmic calendar, the winter solstice. It occurs tomorrow, December 21st, the longest night and the shortest day in the Northern Hemisphere. The winter solstice is known for being the darkest day of the year, but the profound and interesting thing to understand about this moment is that it is also the exact moment when light begins to return. In Latin, solstice means sun standing still. And so for a brief moment, the sun appears to pause in the sky before reversing its course. So for 3 days around the solstice, we experience the power of the standstill point and the shift of direction. It's a huge pause and a powerful metaphor for the energy available to us at the winter solstice to change the direction of our life with intention and build on this energy as we enter into the new year. It is so powerful to take this pause, which we will talk about today on this episode. Winter is a time about going within. It is the fruitful darkness and silence out of which our soul's yearnings and new inspirations can eventually emerge. As we consciously link our awareness to nature cycles, our understanding of our own personal growth cycles begins to deepen. So often, we fear our own darkness. We suppress and hide our shadow aspects, judging them as inconvenient or wrong. But what if we could see our darkness as a source of power? What if we could understand that darkness can be one of the greatest catalysts for personal growth and transformation? By allowing ourselves to feel our emotions and experience our own darkness, the darkness itself can become the spiritual cradle into which our inner light and new life is born. In winter, everything lies dormant in the silent earth. It is a sacred time of rest and reflection before the awakening and the slow build toward brighter days. The dark triumphs over the light, and this signifies an important turning point. The light of the sun begins a new solar cycle at the winter solstice. The sunlight rays shine into the dark, rich earth and nurture the newborn life they're waiting to be cultivated. This is mirrored in our own lives as the spiritual seeds of new awakenings that are buried deep in the darkness of our inner world, waiting to emerge once again with the life-giving rays of the sun. Winter is a time to go within and look to our visions, but many times we find ourselves stuck in the old patterns, feeling like there is no way out, so we keep repeating those patterns. But what if I told you there was a way to break free and heal your timeline? My upcoming online class, Past, Present, Future, the Akashic Timeline Healing Method, can help you to do that. In this class, we will learn how to work in the Akashic realm, combining ancient wisdom with powerful healing modalities to create profound, lasting transformation. You'll learn to work in the Akashic records, accessing your soul's complete history, and connect with your guides, masters, teachers, angels, and loved ones to reveal the origin of your patterns. We'll work with Reiki energy healing and the symbols to go back into the timeline to send powerful healing energy across all time and space, calming your nervous system and breaking those blockages. We'll connect and build our spiritual teams with angels, guides, even our galactic guides to help you understand and bring those messages in for divine support and guidance. We'll work with the higher self and align that energy to access soul level wisdom and make decisions from your highest consciousness. We'll work with crystals. We'll work with EFT, tapping it out, rewiring the brain. And we also will work with the forgiveness technique to forgive the journey of your soul. There is no judgment in the Akashic realm, so we allow this to come forward as we find those parts of us that are stuck, that have the imprints, to heal the past right here in the present time to help us set new energy for our future work. Want to know more? Schedule a spiritual upgrade breakthrough call with me. Let's talk about the program and how it can help you to move forward, break the patterns, and heal the timeline of your soul's journey. I'll leave the link for the program and the call in the show notes. In today's episode, I speak with Alexis Ann Unger, a yoga and meditation instructor, writer, and community connector, about ways to embody the creative process through art. We talk about ways to slow down, how to use art to understand life, how to create a community, and how you can allow yourself to process energy through all the many struggles we face. Before we begin, let's take a moment to pause and breathe and set an intention for this winter solstice energy. So wherever you are, if you can, close your eyes for a few moments. Taking a nice deep inhale, breathing up the body. And as you exhale, call all your energy into you, slowing down. Inhale, expanding the breath up the body. And as you exhale, dropping right into the heart, right into the deepest part of your heart. Feel that connection, your spirit and the greater spirit. Know that you are loved, guided, protected. Feeling all this energy coming in around us as we take this time to honor this brand new season of winter. Imagine, pretend, visualize yourself standing in the direction of the north. The north, where we call in the energy and wisdom of our ancestors. We go deep into visioning our future. We call in all the directions to the north, the east, the south, and the west, above us, below us, right into the very center, right here in the deepest part of your heart, setting an intention, feeling all this energy coming in around us, source, creator, guides, angels, opening up. Noticing this elevated emotion, how you want to feel with this new season coming in. Taking another deep inhale and exhale right from the heart, sending those intentions out, setting that energy for you. Taking another deep inhale and exhale all the way down deep into the earth. Feel the heart opened. Feel the illumination of your third eye. And as you're ready, blinking the eyes back open, coming back. So my guest today, Alexis Ann Unger, is a yoga and meditation teacher, writer, and community connector. Alexis has over 550 hours of training in Vinyasa, restorative, yin, chair, meditation, and yoga in the schools. She has published introspective short stories in her own memoir, Unreliable Narrative, an anthology by Written in Brooklyn, and on her Substack, Alexis Monthly Musings. She has assisted artists in local Birmingham small businesses in making their dreams reality by connecting them to resources in their community and hosting events that that bring creatives together to collaborate and inspire. Alexis lives her life creatively as a beacon for others to slow down, to connect with their own unique inner voice, and to collaborate with the community so they can make their dreams into reality. So let us welcome Alexis to the show. Welcome, Alexis.
Hey, nice to see you, Terry.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you on the show. We met, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago, maybe
Yeah,
three. Yeah, over at the yoga circle,
yeah,
right?
definitely.
And just kind of, yeah, met each other there, have some mutual friends, and now kind of joining back in too over at the Cha House here in Birmingham. So I saw that you had written a memoir. Tell us about the memoir and really kind of what led you to writing that.
Yeah, so I wrote my memoir, Unreliable Narrator, in mostly in 2019. I was doing some traveling and really just wanted to write about the grief that I've gone through in my life. It's kind of a coming of age story. It's a little bit about queerness and identity. And it's a lot of short stories. So short stories and poems. And I did a few classes with this program called Written in Brooklyn. So my friend Carly Ann Philbin, she's a Brooklyn comedian, and she does these one-woman shows that are like quite out there and like hilarious. And so but a lot of her guidance or her written in Brooklyn workshops are about storytelling, about personal stories. So she kind of talks us through writing about, breakups, friend breakups, grief, some of those deeper, darker moments of life. So I started attending those classes like storytelling one, storytelling two. And then I had a few different stories that I wanted to put together. And so I added some poems to that book and then just self-published it. So yeah, so I'm really proud about that. That came out a few years ago, but it's still, available, Unreliable Narrator. And it's really sweet to look back at it because I think it's either the first thing or I think the last poem I have is like, what am I here on earth to do? I'm here to love and be loved. And it's just a good reminder to myself and I think to the readers that that really is what we're here to do, even if it feels like life gets a lot more complex than that.
Life does get more complex and life does have many aspects of it. And first off, I love that you talk about grief because it is a hard subject. And I know you've done some programs around it as well. I think it's a very important subject. And I think more and more people are opening up to talk about it, right? And even the cover that you have on the book, it was so pretty. Like you show that we do have that, that shadow side of us. And I think that's really important to address. But the thing that's just so really nice about the book and what you do and the poetry is that for me, because I've had a lot of grief. I had tons after my parents gone, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I tell my own story about grief, but it puts it in a poetic sense and it gives us another perspective. So it allows you to kind of, look back on it. Now I've moved through it. And so of course I'm going to have a different perspective, but it's timeless anyway. And I think sometimes as artists and creatives, we think, oh, the work's done. I'm done. Move on. But no, it's still very appropriate for where we are. Yeah.
Yeah, you can apply it to, any form of grief. And I think, yeah, I look back at it and I laugh at myself because I was like 25 and I was like, I'm going to write a memoir. It's like, what kind of life had I really experienced at that point? But, as you said, when you're a creative, you just really want to get, your message out. And if it is that true message that's coming through spirit and it's coming through that kind of meditative, quiet space, your inner voice, then it will be timeless and hopefully it will help you to connect with others as well. I will kind of promote too. I mean, I don't know if she needs promotion, but she's this incredible author, Melissa Febos. She wrote a book called Body Work, and it's all about her writing of her stories as a woman. And she did a lot of sex work, and so her stories are like these really like wild tales, but she talks about her own personal life and the emotional impact of that work on her life through her writing. And Body Work is her book that she put out, I think most recently, where she's talking about that process of writing through your experiences. And I think especially as women, we are told often to, or like when a man writes his story, it's, a great American author. And when a woman writes her story, it's a woman's perspective, but we're all writing about the heart of our life experiences. So yeah, that book was really, really helpful for me too in realizing that, she views writing as a spiritual practice. And she's this like acclaimed writer at this point. But for me, it's just one of the things in my toolbox, but it is something I come back to again and again.
Yeah, you brought so many great points forward. Yes, I definitely agree. Writing is a spiritual tool. It really is a spiritual process. I had Lanier Isom on the show who did Lily and Get the Movie and all that. And we had this very conversation about how it's a very spiritual process. We go in deep, we call in that energy to help us bring those words forward. I want to write a memoir about my past life journeys. Yeah, I've thought about it often. And sometimes I think, like you kind of intimate, like, why write a memoir? Why do this? Now I look back on it, but it can offer different perspectives for people. Yeah. So tell me something. When did you live in New York?
So I lived in New York City after I graduated college. So I went to Bama, which is what drew me to Alabama. I'm from Indiana originally. And then after college, I went to New York City and I was working in finance. But it's also where I found yoga. So I found a yoga teacher there that recommended I go into do the 200-hour program. I also did a restorative training there at Pure Yoga. So I was there for about 3.5 years, 4 years, and it was really, really a powerful place, obviously. But I'm grateful to be back in this slower pace of life in Birmingham. I mean, Birmingham has so much. I feel like I talk to a lot of folks about how they're surprised how much Birmingham holds, but it is really powerful. But yeah,
Comment on that.
yeah,
Yes. I mean, Birmingham is a beautiful place. I grew up here. I left in the 70s because I needed to get out. I needed to get out of the South. I was also born Jewish in the South. So that there was a lot going on. And I wound up in New York. So I spent 15 years in New York City and I was in the arts. I was dancing. I was down there bartending, working at Merce Cunningham, just that whole vibe of the 80s down there. And it was awesome. But I
yeah.
couldn't be a starving artist to make it, right? And so I kind of went into my other major, which was photography, and started doing more of that work. But I love the city, and there was so much. And I kind of agree. I've been back a couple of times since I've been here. I've been back in Birmingham now 13 years, I think, about to head out. But it is a faster pace. And that is what drew me, the lights and the energy and all of that. And I love the education I got for sure. Yeah, I used to go to BAM, Berkeley Academy of Music, and there used to be workshops down there and the arts and all of that. Yeah, for sure. And I love the museums. Yeah,
Yeah. I
definitely.
mean, and that, like I said, it's where I found some of the great yoga teachers will do programs there or they're based there. And it's so interesting too because, it's this crazy city outside and then you walk into a studio or you go up an elevator and find this tiny studio and they're creating this beautiful space. And I think it is true to the practice of yoga that it is all about finding that mindfulness even in the midst of like the chaos. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I found a lot of writing there too. Like my writing teacher, is from there as well. And it's like I went to her one woman show and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is awesome. So it's a great place for inspiration and seeing people that are really out there doing the damn thing, in any aspect, right? Whether it's art, yoga, even the best bartenders in the world, best restaurants, so it is really interesting to see people just honing in on their craft.
Yeah, I so agree. I have such memories of this time of year in New York City, right? Just taking workshops and being out there in the world and doing little, dance performances with solo artists. And yeah, it's just such an intriguing time of year to be able to have that creative expression. Now, for me, the creative part and the performance art has gone on to be healing arts, which I think you share in common as well, and how
Yeah.
that translates. Yeah.
I think that the creative arts did heal me, right? My different modalities, and you may have some different ones, right, than me. I think we share some of the yoga and the healing arts, but you did dance and some different performances, right? I did some, writing, some singing back in the day too. So I think that those things like heal us. And then it's really interesting and cool to be able to help others to figure out what those things are for them. And I always say to people, whatever kind of class or workshop I'm offering, like if this is not it for you, that's fine. It doesn't bother me for you to find something else, but I'm just excited for you to tap into your creativity and try something else. Because I do think we're living in a world of people that are blocked, and I'm a big artist's way person, but blocked creatives and just in this consumerist world, it's all about, okay, if you're not feeling well, just buy something to feel better, right? But is there a moment where we can look inward? And maybe that's writing, maybe that's music, maybe that's dance. But whatever that magnifying glass is, to turn inward, slow down, and then see what you really want to create. That's where the value is.
Yeah. Yeah, so many important things there. Yes. So for me it's through yoga and it's through my hands. Like I have to have something going on with my hands. And I'm laughing because I recently started crocheting because I'm a new grandma, right? Like for my little grandson. That got me back to it and now I love it. But the thing that's very common about that or making jewelry or doing art is we do process energy with our hands and even the writing. And it helps us to do that. So sometimes it just takes away all that, mind chatter and all that thinking. We get into this gamma state of consciousness and we're just in this beautiful creative flow and we're processing energy that's stuck inside of us. And so to me, having the arts and having that creativity, I'll always have. I always will. As I'm going to pack up my house because, I'm moving out to California. Yes, a big transition. But it's like, okay, my jewelry and my art, what am I taking? What can I leave? And like the thing I'm taking is my healing studio. It's like, okay, everything else I don't need. But it is what has helped me through many years of just processing energy and all the different phases that we're going through. And I think that's really important. Now, here we are, we're going into the winter. We've got the solstice as this goes to air, and we're going into this darker time of year. Although the light returns, we've still got to move through all of that energy. What better way than to use the arts?
Yeah. Yeah, so, when we're in this darker place, I think it's good to pause, just truly pause. So whether that's restorative yoga, meditation, just laying on your couch, like pause. But then, like, I think the crux, especially with social media and all of this world that we're living in, is like turn everything off and be listening into what is inside that you want to do. And then, like you said, there is an element of I write by hand when I'm doing my journaling in the morning. Some of my writing that I've published, I've done on the laptop, but every morning I'm writing by hand because I agree with you that there's a physical element to it. And if someone's able, I think, I invite them to do so. Um, but it's like start writing and then see what happens, or start creating jewelry, see what happens, start crocheting, see what happens. Music is a great one, just start plucking around on the guitar and like see what arises, or just like pick a song that's easy and then from there maybe something new will come. So it's about, I think, both things, like going really quietly into oneself and turning off, pratyahara, like turning off the other sense objects that are really vying for our attention. Really simply turn off the phone, maybe put on some soothing music or not, and just be present in that moment, and then pick up a couple tools and see what happens. But you might find in that quiet place, like for me, it really is after a meditation that I've come up with inspiration, and it doesn't have to feel like this wild, crazy thing. The inspiration could be like, I really need to sit down and write about XYZ time in my life. Or, I think this community really needs a workshop on grief or on processing. So a lot of those thought processes for me come after, just a 15-minute or 30-minute meditation where I've really given myself the time to turn off that external chatter as much as possible. And like you're right, we got the internal chatter too, but
I so agree. Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big meditator. I have my little routine in the morning where I do my breathing, my pranayama, and then I go into the upper realms, right? Calling in all my guides and all of that. But lots of times my downloads come when I'm outside, go for a walk,
yeah.
work in the yard, like, oh, there they are. Oh, there they are. And I'm often like stopping to make a note on it. So rather than even trying to find them, I'm actually in a new group of gamma. It's called gamma. Instead of beta, it's called gamma because we're working in that gamma consciousness. And it's all about accessing those downloads. So I think all of these tools help us. And then I agree about writing. I agree about the handwriting because it just is such a different thing and processing and getting into it. So it is important. In fact, I've been going through all my journals and I found one winter where I just was scripting, not just writing, but scripting. And it's like, wow. And it reminded me of this time and it didn't look like my writing, but it was. So it's very fascinating, yes, to sit down and really use the hands to process energy.
I listen to a comedy podcast and they joke about folks in LA, like you could spend all day doing your routines, and then you could get to 5 p.m. and be tired and be done for the day because there's so many different practices that can be helpful. And I think for me, and what I encourage folks to do too, is really try to understand if there's a way you can adjust your day-to-day life to incorporate those routines into it. So, like you said, if you are going from one place to another, maybe you walk there because you know that walking is a place where you can find that download, or just make that walk with your dog something sacred because it can be. So I think it's both having the practices and like me too, I've got the morning practice and it's the journaling 3 pages and the meditation, but I'm grateful to be a yoga teacher because it brings me into that yoga space so often that I remind myself that I need to be in my physical practice, and then going outside and any of those. So
I totally agree with you. Finding it as your practical spirituality, your everyday life, instead of it being like, oh, it's a chore. I got to go do this. I got to go do this. But incorporating it so then it becomes blended into your life, I think is so valuable.
I think some folks feel like they can't, and maybe it's that they can't yet, and there might be some changes that they could make to adjust that. I think for me, it was very divided a few years ago, and so I've enjoyed incorporating my life into the practice.
Yeah. That is one of the things I like to offer when I mentor is like, how can you make this in your everyday practice? When you walk into a room, take a moment. Notice the energy instead of just rushing in. Like, where are you absorbing it? How are you feeling? I think all those are part of making the awareness come forward. I definitely agree with you. And the counter to that, the hard part is all that, the social media that keeps us churning the mind. And we can take a break, check social media. But are we really taking a break? No, we're not. We're just like adding to that dopamine hit, hit, hit. And then we go back into our life. And we're like, where is that? Right. So I
Mhm.
agree. Just put the phone down, find those moments of silence, and then just really allow yourself to notice. That's part of it too. How do I feel now? What am I noticing? Right. This new group I'm in, like I've had to stop and think because sometimes I take downloads for granted.
Mm.
Like, okay, yeah, I get them all the time. I take them for granted. And I had to stop and think because she was asking questions and we were in little breakout rooms, right? But it was like really slow down to remember how to get those and what are those about. So it was a process. And then, of course, we're journaling, right? So that is really important aspect of it. Yeah.
So with your downloads, do you feel like there was a point or a choice maybe that you made in your life that moved it from being like a random occurrence to being a more routine? Do you know what I'm saying? Like maybe you were having like one per month or one per year, versus like finding it.
I think the answer to that is meditation.
Yeah.
It's just the more I meditate, the more I find because I am opening the heart. I am moving into fifth dimension. And so I'm not getting into the chatter that we get caught in. But the more I meditate and sit in it and just be there, they come. It's
Mm.
like an animation. I was talking last week with Tina Zion on the podcast about a pop. She calls it a pop. Like, oh, right. And so then we also see the signs, we see the numbers, we see the feathers. So then we began to really kind of live in that magical state of living. Is kind of, I don't like to use the word magic because I don't want people to think, oh, it's just woo, it doesn't work. But it is what it is. It
Yeah.
is. I'd rather live there than the stress and struggles and churning the mind over and over and telling the story over and over.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think that was the part of it is like, oh, well, I do this. Let me slow down to see what this is about, how I got there. Because
Yeah.
that's kind of one of the questions. Well, how did you get them? Right. And it's like, I just get them, but that wasn't a good enough answer. No, let me break it down. But I think going back to our point here, too, that all of the arts, and I know I've had past lifetimes as a painter. I'm painting my house right now, and I was watching Chad, and I'll give her a shout out, Chad Andrews. But just like that energy of being in the paint, and I know I could do it, but I knew I had to be the cleaner, right? It's like, okay, like we have all of these great skills, whether it's making jewelry or painting or dancing or yoga. Like that is a form of expression, and that's very important because all of this AI stuff is nothing without that creative thought process. We still need the original thoughts. Well, is there anything original? That's a whole nother subject, right? But we still need those creative thoughts to come forward and to give us, I think, that richness of life, that inspiration to who we are. Yeah,
Yeah, and I
definitely.
think it comes through you for a reason for what you need in your life process, and then also it's for the people around you. So even if the thought's not original, it's like maybe your community needs to hear that thought, or your community needs to see that creative expression.
Yeah.
And I think that's been powerful too, to see that I think that my friends pick up on my shifts in life and like my diving into creativity. And I've had a lot of creative friends, and like that's been really powerful, is having other creatives around to bounce ideas off of and realize like, okay, what practices do you do and what practices do you do? And can we share our practices? Even though you're a, talented guitarist, musician, like, can we play in my space today and see what happens for you? And it also just keeps you accountable to creating, because that is part of like your own desire. As a human, I really think that all of us can create. It's about finding, maybe your form of creativity, like we're talking about, but also giving yourself the time to do so and dive in. Because creativity comes from, maybe to wrap it back too, like it can sometimes come from those darker places, from grief or through writing through those challenging emotions that, if we're on our phone, if we're just chatting with friends at a very high level all day, we're not even thinking about these deeper experiences that we've had in life and how they can transmute onto the page, onto the stage, into the music, into the yoga. Yeah.
Yeah. It does translate, and it does help us to understand it. I know grief and fear sent me around the world and back again, it seemed like. Maybe just this continent, but it did. It sent me to all these different places and different teachers and going deeper and understanding what is this about until I could find that part of my soul's journey to catch up and understand it. So it can be very powerful. And lots of times we think, oh no, our vulnerability, don't tell anybody, I'm having a hard time or I'm going through this. But I think that for community, as you're saying, I don't think we tell it right when we're in the soreness of it, right? And the deep pain, the wounds open. But when we can process it and recognize the healing, that's when it can become very powerful. It really
Yeah.
can. It can help us to open up to our community. I mean, like we were talking about with the grief, it's like it is a hard topic. But yet, the more and more we do talk about it, the better. It's just like the grief cafe. I've talked about this like three,
Yeah.
4 times now on the show, right? It was so great over at Chai House. How many people showed up? How many people wanted to reach out? And that was just a conversation. So that too can have its many benefits in talking about such a hard subject. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And I think I'll share that too. It's really neat that Chaw House has been hosting lots of spaces. So that Birmingham Death Cafe, that was a huge event. And then our poetry readings, Hallie, I'm not sure her last name, but Hallie's been doing these poetry readings, and people are sharing like the deepest stuff, and you're bringing in, Reiki, crochet, and we've had Reiki and meditation, and people, lots of live music, um, storytelling events, like you name it, right, in this space. And so there is a need for it. And thinking about Birmingham versus New York, I think just the difference that I tell people about that difference is that in Birmingham, there might be like one or two of those kinds of events per night. And in New York, there's, 80. But I think there's some power to how Birmingham is, because it's like, okay, I want to do a creative event tonight, or I want to get to the heart of the matter. Like, what kind of poetry readings are happening? And then you go and you keep seeing the same people, and there's even more vulnerability in that, like revealing your poetry or revealing your storytelling to that same kind of circle of people, and they become your community and your friends. But yeah, so not only the Death Cafe, although that was very powerful. So I was working from the tea side, but just witnessing, how many folks were there to talk about death. It was very cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. And the Chai House is so needed. And I know that Sierra has worked really hard to sustain it and to get it there. And it was a dream she had starting way back, even over at the clubhouse. And we were doing a couple of things with her over there, but that she is bringing it together and that Birmingham is seeing that there is a need for this kind of gathering. It does remind me of like being in New York, like right back in the 80s, 90s, when they had like the little tea houses and the coffee houses and the people that would show up for music and stuff like that. And so we do need it. I used to go to in Birmingham, this goes back to mid 70s before I graduated, poetry readings over there in Highland. I remember it was one of the first communes in Highland. I used to go over there with a friend of mine, and we'd sit for the poetry readings. But it is so needed. It's so healing. So what a great job. What a great shout out for her over there that she's doing that, because how else can we get together? Right? The internet and the social media is more isolating, but now that, COVID, all that, get it out of here so that we can come back and find places like this. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, we both have a love for restorative yoga. We had mentioned that earlier. And I do love it because I think restorative yoga, any yoga really, but particularly a restorative or yin, helps us to calm down, helps us to process because the body needs to restore. I know a lot of people think, oh no, yoga's the asanas, the go, go, go. And I kind of come in the different age. And I've been there. I was in Ashtangi for many years, right? Kundalini, Ashtanga, all of those. And maybe it's my age, I don't know, but I still think I always had a restorative practice. Yeah. What is your take on that?
Yeah. So I think that I was kind of in the same boat when I first got drawn to yoga. It was that I was excited about a physical practice that I could enjoy. I'd had challenges in gym. I wasn't good at sports. So I was like, oh, wow, like I love that yoga meets me where I am. But I enjoyed the challenge of the, quick, fast-paced vinyasas. And my training was in a vinyasa Ashtanga inspired, 200 hour. But I realized kind of eventually in that too that like it could be, right? Those are beautiful practices, but they can be another way of running from yourself. They can be another way of like, ooh, let me put myself into this like cool project of this vinyasa class for, 45 minutes to get away from myself. And I even noticed that this year I was up at Kripalu for a yoga training, and I went to a yoga class that said it was going to be an advanced vinyasa. And I get there, and the teacher did a slow flow. And, at first I'm like, oh, I'm so frustrated. And I realized, why am I frustrated? It was because I was hoping to get away from myself. Like I was hoping to use the vinyasa practice to get so pulled into the practice that I was no longer with my truth. And so that slower flow made me kind of confront myself a little bit more, which was a bit uncomfortable, but ultimately probably what I needed. And so I think that that was really my draw to restorative yoga was the studio I was doing my trainings at, they would have, these vinyasa classes and then they would have the restorative in the evening. So I would often do them back to back, which is really awesome. Like I love when, that's possible. I think it's very cool to be able to do both. Because then you get that physical practice, and by the time you arrive at the restorative, you're very rested, physically, and you're ready to sit. But yeah, I took a couple of those in a back-to-back format, and then I realized like, oh yeah, this is the real thing. I think you get more of the 8 limbs in restorative yoga than you do in the vinyasa. I think the vinyasa, you're really working on the asana and pranayama, but you're not doing the concentration quite as much. You're not doing the meditation, the absorption, the, reduction, pratyahara, I mentioned it earlier, of the senses. You're getting a lot more of that in the restorative practice. So I think it's a great way. And then I also think since I've been teaching it, a lot of my friends really enjoy it because friends that work in, I have a friend that works in a factory. So he's physically, done at the end of the day. So a vinyasa yoga practice wouldn't be appropriate for him anyway, but it's a great way to bring in a lot more bodies into yoga, I think, because it is all about taking care of the body too. So yeah, it's a lot of it. I just love it. I think it's a great practice, and I think you do get more to the heart of the matter. And I will say too, that's how Sierra and I started working together was at Yoga Circle. We did tea and restorative yoga workshops there. I think that may have been where we met. And so we would offer tea and then you would take a pause between those postures to sip some tea on your mat. And then I would offer a journal prompt or two, and then we would go back to meditating or go back into a different posture. And those were really powerful practices. But I think even like any sort of restorative yoga, even if there's no journaling element or tea element, you're still getting a lot out of it to just be able to rest, to be in the body.
Yeah. My original training with restorative yoga and introduction was in New York. I was at a studio, Sweet Home, no, not Sweet Home, Alabama. That was down here. Om Sweet Home. And Gail Grossman, who's actually written a very good book about restorative yoga. But I recognized early on, like, wow, Reiki would be a great addition to the restorative yoga. So that is something I offer in mine because they're there and it helps them calm down more. So it is a beautiful way to blend those modalities. But I will tell people that come in for the first time, the hardest part isn't the yoga, it's going to be the mind.
Yeah.
Are we going to get out of here? What's for dinner? What's going on? I teach Friday night. So it's like, yeah, what's going on? But it is a beautiful way, I think, to close out your week, just to kind of take a moment and honor yourself. And I also use the sound bowls, right? I think everything I do is with sound bowls now because it's another way to get out of the mind and open up to vibration, to energy vibration for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think you're highlighting that it's a beautiful thing for us as practitioners and sharers of the practice to be able to add our elements to it. So that's also fun as a teacher because, we need to keep it interesting for ourselves as well, and like being able to blend all of our practices.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it is, I would say it is, yin and restorative are some of the most challenging practices, truly, because if you think about yourself as a whole entity, right? Spirit, body, breath, mind, it's going to challenge you a lot more on those mind and spirit aspects. And let's be real, in our world again, and I think it's just interesting, right? If you have a strong Pilates practice, then yeah, Vinyasa yoga, it might not challenge you that much. I mean, it will. It'll be interesting too. But restorative might really challenge you. And
Yeah.
if you are someone that I think there are people out there that are maybe kapha, if you think about Ayurveda too, but that are used to resting, right? And maybe a vinyasa could be better for them because they might confront some aspects about themselves that they wouldn't in a restorative class. But I think most folks living in our world, in America in general, could really use some time to slow down. And I always say to myself too, even if I feel like the class wasn't the best class ever, or I'm nervous about, imposter syndrome about my teaching, I'm like, at the very least, they spent an hour away from their phone. They spent an hour breathing, connected to their body, and there's so much power in that.
Yeah. I so agree. I remember when I was an early teacher. And I remember Kasha because I trained with Akasha Ellis here in Birmingham. And I remember him saying, don't rush. Like, let them have that experience, because I could start to feel people's energy. How long are they going to stay in the pose, right? But it's like, no, don't rush. This is part of them having that experience. And the more time we allow for them to get quiet, is going to be very powerful. I've recently been teaching some of the high yen over at the yoga circle, and I started to do a little research into high yen and how is it and what is it. And I am a huge what would it be? A huge student of the fascia system. Like I can't get enough learning about the fascia, the consciousness that it holds and how it helps us. And yen, a big part of the yen practice is that release of the fascia system, which restorative can do too. But the restorative I teach is more Judith Laster style, which is rest, right? Don't hold the alignment, just rest. But I think it's all valuable when we start to really break down what's going on inside of us. Where are we holding those emotions? And the idea of the fascia, how it holds that pain and that emotion in there. But we can also consciously choose to tell it to let go and
Mhm.
work with that healing aspects of us, which is what all the arts are helping us to do. Yes, I know there's performance art. Yes, I recently just hugged some of my Buddhas over at Cha House. Yes, I know there's art like that, but all of it is here to help us open up with a different perspective than some of that daily grind we go through. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think about, the Ram Dass, where he talks about going out of the marketplace and into the quiet space. And I love how he calls it the marketplace because it's like we don't necessarily see our world as that, but it's that hustle and bustle. Like if you're out in like a big outdoor market, it's like that's kind of where we live on a day-to-day basis. But you can take that moment you mentioned earlier about when you walk into a new space, taking a deep breath, checking in with your energy, and then very quickly that marketplace, you realize that you are meeting souls each time. When you meet a new person, it might feel like, oh, we're just like hanging out or networking or we're whatever, but it's like, no, I'm genuinely meeting someone that has a full life and spiritual experience. So it is very powerful. I think any of those practices that help us to step out of that marketplace mindset.
I
Yeah.
love that reminder.
Yeah.
Like we're connecting with souls. I really love that reminder because it's true. And because, we can feel that. And we do travel with our soul family. And sometimes we haven't seen somebody in our soul family. But I do think that that helps us to get out of that third, fourth dimension when we look at that. We move into the fifth dimension. We open our hearts and, like soul to soul, we are here. We're creating this beautiful community of healing or whatever it may be, music, dance, light, that kind of thing. So I do think it's all really important. And I love that you brought it out in that respect. Yeah, that was beautiful thought for sure. Yeah. So much going on, so much energy. Even as we go to slow down, there's still so much energy that goes on within us
Mhm.
that's unseen. And I think that's really important to help us to really resonate and align with as we move into winter, where we can just kind of go in. I always like to talk about in the medicine wheel, we talk about winter in the direction of the north. That's the wisdom of our ancestors. That's where we do that new visioning so that we go to plant seeds in the spring and the seeds will grow. But it's a very powerful time. And again, art is to me so inspiring. In New York, I remember like my early days coming out of college and standing in the Museum of Modern Art and that photo energy, like that, those true Steichen galleries up there, like, right? Like that's the energy there. And yeah, we need that. We need to bring it forward. And I know during the holidays, I don't really celebrate Christmas, brought up Jewish. And so sometimes I can get a little like disjointed, like, oh, everybody but me, right? But what I've learned over the last several years is just find the art projects and just find something that I can tune into so I feel that connection with the universe. And I think art can do that for us for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I'm sure plenty of people on your podcast would mention this, but I think that still remembering that to choose to slow down during this time is still a very unique choice because our society, again, the marketplace is like Black Friday shopping, Christmas shopping, and Hanukkah, and like let's celebrate and let's get together for dinner every night. So it's still quite radical to say, you know what? Maybe I'm going to be with my community, but it's over a cup of cacao and I'll be with my community for an hour and then I can go home and like work on my own internal processes, so it is still radical to be slowing down in the way that we do. It's still pretty unique, but yeah, it's not radical when you think about the larger scale, right? I mean, it's just the weather is telling us to do so, and last night was particularly cold, so it was a great night to kind of bundle up and stay in. Yeah, and I like what you said about the art, and I think it's all of the different pieces of it. Winter can be a time to go in and reflect and just listen to that meditative space. Like you said, opening yourself up, noticing what downloads are coming in. And it also can be, okay, I'm going to take, this piece of art in my hand and see what I create from it. It can be taking in the art of others, whatever holiday it is, there's plenty of art being shared. Yeah, and it can also be just saying, you know what, I might not be feeling that creative right now, but I'm ready to plant those seeds come spring. So maybe I have some inner work to do in these last couple months of winter.
Yeah, I think that's so important, especially because you know what? We rush through winter, we get to January, let's set new intentions, but wait, right? That seed has got to like kind of germinate underneath and be in there because really it's spring that we come out. So allowing us to have these tools in many ways to do it. And I even love just that thought, like, because I can be a homebody. I can get to the end of the day and, not want to get out. But that idea of like, well, let me go out for an hour and have a cup of cacao and just sit around my friends, right? Like, yeah, that's a beautiful thought to help us. Then we can feel not isolated and alone because I know there's been many winters that I've felt that. But it is important that we can connect and have easy ways to do it. So it's not centered around a bar, let me tell
Yeah.
you, right? Yeah, I think that's so important. I really do.
That's a huge aspect of all of the work that I'm doing, ecstatic dance, about having a sober dance space, Cha House, having a sober space to connect. It's just a huge part of my practice. And, I'm not 100% sober, but I think a lot of, they're saying that Gen Z especially is extremely sober. So we're curious and all these new terms coming up because it really is, it's another way to run from oneself, to be using drugs and alcohol. And so it is more challenging to live a life of sobriety in terms of seeing yourself in that. Um, yeah, so I love being a part of those spaces, especially in the holidays, which that marketplace can be very leaning towards the eggnog and whatever. And so it's very cool to be kind of standing on the other side of it and trying to welcome in whoever wants to be curious about it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And FYI, I have a Buddha hanging over at your house from the Ram Dass Library at the
Oh,
Omega.
wow.
Yeah,
Okay, I
I
need
do.
to check
It
that
is
out.
a Ram Dass Buddha. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I
Yeah.
used to shoot Buddhas in my photography days in large scale printing. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
No, and
Yeah.
I'm teaching a class there tonight, so we'll be in the Buddha room. I'm very
There you
excited.
go, the Buddha
Yeah.
room. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
absolutely. So, where can we find you? Tell us about the events you have coming up. Let us know.
Yeah. So I have a processing 2025 event coming up and then envisioning 2026 event coming up. Those are both going to be at Cha House. You can mostly find me at Cha House. I have a link tree that has all of my upcoming events. Lots of yoga, lots of journaling workshop kind of things coming up. And then ecstatic dance as well. So we're kind of coming back with a winter solstice event. And so we should have some events coming up this spring as well. We're trying to align with some of the pagan holidays so that we can really dive a little deeper into those practices as well. So yeah, Linktree, social media. I'm Alexis Ann Unger on Instagram on all platforms pretty much. But yeah, Cha House, you can find me. I'm around.
I will put the links in the show notes, link to your book as well. You know, your book reminded me of, I meant to say this earlier, the She Book.
Oh, okay.
She book too, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Nice thoughts of inspiration for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, what a delightful conversation. And as we come around to close and just bring our energy all together and leave our listeners with one last uplifting thought, how would you say that all you're doing right now, the writing, the creativity, the yoga, the talking about some of the shadow subjects can help to empower the spirit right now?
Yeah, I think just take the time to really get to know yourself and honor that this society may not always give you plenty of opportunity to do so, but you can find those space to do so, the spaces to do so in community. And yeah, I think your spirit will be empowered. If you take that time to slow down, to connect with yourself and to create, you'll figure out what the next steps are on your path, and your spirit will be grateful for that.
Take the time to slow down. I so agree. So much power in slowing down. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Alexis, thank you again for joining us today. To your spirit, namaste.
Thank you. So grateful.
So, yes, take a pause, process the energy you are moving through, allow the creative process to help you. Winter is the time to do this. As we open up to this new season, I hope this conversation with Alexis has inspired you to explore your own creativity and connect with your inner guidance. As Alexis shared, taking the time to slow down, listen to your spirit, and create can be a powerful way to navigate life's choices and challenges and find your path. You can find more about Alexis, her book, Unreliable Narrator, and her upcoming events in the show notes. Please share this podcast, and if you would, leave me a review on iTunes. It helps the podcast to be found. And if you are in the Birmingham area, come join me tonight, Saturday, December 20th, for a celebration of light with the Light Labyrinth for the Winter Solstice program at the Yoga Circle. It's my last offering in Birmingham, so please come join me and magnify this energy for the return of light. Until next time, may you find the courage to embrace your own story and empower your spirit. Thanks again for listening. I am your host, Terri Ann Heiman, to Your Spirit. Namaste.